This episode of the Ron Burgundy Podcast is brought to you by the Quarter Pounder with Cheese from McDonald's. You know that feeling you get driving around town and you're hungry and you start singing, Quarter Pounder with Cheese, Quarter Pounder with Cheese, or as I like to call it, the QPC. And then there they are, those familiar golden arches. And then you realize you're singing at the drive-thru and you feel like an idiot. But who cares? Once they hand you that deliciously cooked fresh beef, crunchy pickles, onions, 2 slices of melted cheese with ketchup and mustard, you go right on singing. Order the McDonald's QPC, a burger so darn good, it might make you sing.
You're listening to Archaeopolitics, a Harry Potter reread podcast focusing on politics in the wizarding world. As always, I'm still Adri, one of your hosts, and a recovering English major.
And nothing has changed. I am still Helene, your second host, co-host, and producer of Archaeopolitics, a Harry Potter reread podcast that focuses on politics in the wizarding world.
Okay, Helene.
We're going off the rails pretty early on in this episode, apparently.
In case you were wondering what this podcast is about, Helene just summed it up again. So we're going to be talking about Chapter 6, titled The Ghoul in Pajamas of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows.
That we are.
But before we get to that chapter and what it's about, Helene, how are you?
I'm good. I finally got a promotion that I've been waiting for 6 months, and a nice little raise that came with that. And I finally got to start doing my new position. Like, I moved over to a different team, and I actually got to start like being on that team and doing that work this week. And it's been fun. And I'm just like, things that I have literally been waiting for, manifesting for 6 months, have finally started to happen. And I'm just, relieved and excited.
Well, it's funny because we had been waiting for a lot of changes, you and I, and they kind of happened around the same time.
Yeah, they did. I feel like a lot of our big changes in life tend to happen around the same time.
It's because, as we were talking off mic, we are 2 voices, but 1 podcast host.
Yeah, we share a brain, as we like to say.
Correct. Yeah, it's... What a week. It's gone by too quickly. I can't believe it's Wednesday already. Listeners, I know you're listening on Monday or Tuesday or whatever, but, for us, it's still Wednesday of last week.
Time, man. So strange. It's like time zones. We're in like a really, really like behind time zone, basically.
We're in a really weird time bubble time zone. Well, but let's talk about the news before we get to the chapter, because we have a doozy that happened yesterday, Tuesday, August.
A positive doozy.
Well, did it happen? No, it happened August 8th or August 9th.
I don't remember.
I think it happened August 8th, which was Monday. So I have to correct myself. Yesterday was my parents' 47th wedding anniversary, so that was a fun thing.
But that wasn't what you were talking about.
Yeah, so that was great. But you know what was better than that, Helene? It was that the FBI executed a search warrant at Trump's Mar-a-Lago based on a document, classified document investigation. And the best part about this, Helene, is that whatever they find, even if it's not related to that investigation, can be prosecuted.
Hell yeah. I keep on seeing things that are saying stuff like, FBI, do an unboxing video.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what comes of this. It's kind of crazy, like, if you think about it. Like, we're talking about a federal investigation of a former president. Like, I know when we think about it in terms of, like, oh, it's Donald Trump. Like, I never really thought of him as, like, I don't know, a president.
The president?
Yeah, like, I know he was for 4 years, unfortunately, but, like, when you think about it, it's like, wow, like, the former president of the United States is under investigation. Like, that's crazy. It's like, I know that people who lived during Watergate and, like, Nixon's resignation and all those things, like, that are probably like, oh, this is old news. I've seen this before. But, like, I wasn't alive for that. So this is new to me.
But Helene, whatever happened during Watergate was so small in comparison.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, it's not the same, but it's still like, oh, a president is under investigation. Like, it's still kind of crazy.
No. Oh, I completely agree. But like, also when you think about Watergate, you're like, oh, so there's a president who is trying to like do something against his opponent.
Yeah.
Trump did that in just like that was 1 week of his presidency.
Yeah, like his news cycle literally like went through 6 or 7 different controversies every 3 days. It was like insane.
Correct. So that was like 1 24-hour news cycle, you know?
Right.
So I feel like in like retrospect, we're going to be like, shit, can't believe people let that happen. But we're like, yeah, but we've been screaming the entire time, just not enough people, I don't know, cared, or there was too much unchecked power. I don't know, man. Also, he could have probably gotten away with it if he hadn't fucking stolen papers from the White House when he left.
I know, he's an idiot. We all knew this.
Like, this FBI warrant was because of that, okay?
Yeah. I mean, he's going to probably end up doing jail time. So, I mean, which is
From
great because that means he can't run for
ears.
Yeah, I mean, that means he can't run for president again, which would be great. And so fingers crossed, guys. Let's manifest this together.
Yeah, we need good news. Let's manifest good news for our futures.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Helene, it's time. Tell us what happens in the chapter.
I'd be delighted. So this is the one where Mrs. Weasley puts the trio and everyone else currently inhabiting the burrow to work in preparation for Belle and Fleur's wedding, as well as scheming to keep Harry, Ron, and Hermione away from each other for long enough so that they aren't able to plan for their hunt for Horcruxes after the wedding. And when they do get some time to plan, Ron and Hermione tell Harry what they've done to prepare for their absence, and they actually prove to him that they know what they're signing up for, which seemed to be kind of a hard task.
It's such a heartwarming moment. We can talk about that later, but it's such a heartwarming moment.
Yeah,
also, like, tough to swallow when you think about the details, but heartwarming nonetheless.
Yeah. I also have complaints about how they kind of, like, frame the different things, but I think I bring that up in my Dementor, so I think we'll probably get past that.
Okay.
All right, we'll get back to that. But yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
All right, so now that we've talked about what happens in the chapter, Helene, would you mind sharing with us what your politic is for this chapter?
Yes. So my politic for chapter 6 is obligation. Obligation is defined as an act or course of action to which a person is morally or legally bound, basically a duty or commitment. And I picked it for a variety of reasons, but mainly like Harry's obligations are very, very like prominent in this chapter. So like mainly his obligation to fulfill Dumbledore's mission of finding and destroying the Horcruxes and ultimately killing Voldemort as a result. And he's obligated both to Dumbledore, or he's obligated to Dumbledore because of the prophecy. Like he literally has to, because the prophecy says he's the only one that can kill Voldemort. But also the fact that he promised to do it before he died, promised Dumbledore, and he didn't want to let him down. So he has those obligations. And then also, he also just feels really obligated throughout the chapter to stay at the Burrow until after the wedding, even though he really doesn't want to. He fights back many, many times. And he feels obligated to help with the wedding preparations because he has a debt of gratitude for Molly and the Weasleys in general for just being so kind and forgiving and loving to him over the years. And so he doesn't want to abandon them or, insult them. And so he feels obligated to stay, even though he feels he should leave. So those are the two big obligations. I also think that Ron and Hermione have some obligations in this chapter to Harry.
Oh yeah,
to like
and
to help him.
They pretty much
fulfill
say it.
Yeah. They feel obligated to help him achieve his goal and go on this mission with him, no matter the cost. And this obligation is more like, due to their friendship and loyalty to Harry. Like they don't feel like they have a choice, even though they do. Even though, I mean, like, I guess maybe that's not fair. They are making the choice consciously to help him, but it's because of like this obligation of like friendship and duty and loyalty that they have, both to Harry and the mission, honestly. So,
all right.
What about you? What was your politic for this chapter?
So my politics was the politic of planning, or preparation, we could call it. So I was thinking about this in terms of how governments sometimes fail to prepare or plan accordingly to possible scenarios, pandemics, just an idea that I'm throwing out there.
Just one example.
Just one small example that has no bearing on our current status at all. When we see that in the series, it's because the Ministry of Magic is very reactive, not proactive, right, to the rise of Voldemort. And that reaction even is lackluster and leaves the Ministry of Magic at a disadvantage. And is that also leaves them vulnerable to be able to attack and puppeteer from within, Meanwhile, this is like an institutional thing, right? Like an institution-wide is very like reactive, but Dumbledore, as the leader of not just Hogwarts but also the Order of the Phoenix, has been planning for this eventuality because he's like, I'm not sure he's completely gone, And that's why the Order and the trio have like a fighting chance against Voldemort. So in the chapter, we see planning and preparing for a wedding, right?
Right, totally.
Well, also at the same time, there's also conducting order business from the borough. So we have like that kind of throwaway line of like, there's also a lot of like order members coming for dinner because they have like order business at their borough, but also we're planning for the wedding and everything's wedding. And also the trio is kind of trying to plan for what's ahead, and Molly keeps getting in the way of that scheming. So there's just a lot going on.
Yeah. No, I mean, I definitely saw planning and preparation very obviously in this chapter, so I think this is a very good one.
But what was your quote? Talk to me about obligation.
Yeah, so it was hard actually because I mean, they don't really like outright say like any of this, any of like what I mentioned earlier. So it's all kind of subtext. But I picked one passage here in a discussion between Harry and Mrs. Weasley that I think kind of alludes to obligation, but it doesn't actually specifically say it outright. So I chose, well, Dumbledore left me stuff to do, he mumbled Harry. Ron and Hermione know about it, and they want to come too. What sort of stuff? I'm sorry, I can't. Well, frankly, I think Arthur and I have a right to know, and I'm sure Mr. and Mrs. Granger would agree, said Mrs. Weasley. Harry had been afraid of the concerned parent attack. He forced himself to look directly into her eyes, noticing as he did that they were precisely the same shade of brown as Ginny's. This did not help. Dumbledore didn't want anyone else to know, Mrs. Weasley. I'm sorry, Ron and Hermione don't have to come. It's their choice.
Oh.
And then she cuts him off and says some other stuff, but...
Well, she's also trying... I mean, I don't want to, like, step on your quote, but in this one, I feel like Molly's also trying to, like, pull at the strings of, like, obligation towards Harry, like, being like, no, I've been nice to you. You must stay.
Yeah, or at least tell me, right? Like, if you're not going to stay, tell me what the hell you're doing and where you're taking my child, right? Like, yeah, it's definitely the Jewish mother guilt thing that she's trying here. So,
or in my case, the Hispanic mother guilt, or Puerto Rican mother guilt,
or Catholic guilt.
Yeah, well, can we say like Puerto Rican Catholic mother guilt? It's very specific.
Just all the things, all the It's specifically Adri's mother's guilt.
Well, I mean, I didn't give a zip code. Like, it could be a lot of women, a lot of mothers in Puerto Rico, you know?
A Catholic Puerto Rican mothers, yes. Totally.
Yes, that's legitimately like 70% of all mothers in Puerto Rico.
All right. That's fine.
It's a lot of people, okay? It has nothing to do with the fact that I'm living with her now, or she's living with me, I guess.
I believe you. You don't have to convince me. You might have to convince the listeners. Maybe, but
hashtag believe women, Helene.
I said you don't have to convince me. Anyway, go ahead. What's your quote?
No. Go ahead. You needed to. Is that all you wanted to say about your quote? I kind of stepped on it.
Oh yeah, no. That's basically it. Yeah, I mean, I think it's obvious that the quote is like Harry, like explaining that he can't, like he has to do what he has to do because he has an obligation to Dumbledore, and that technically Ron and Hermione don't have the same obligation to Dumbledore, but they're like choosing to go anyway.
Well, and also I feel like Molly is also telling him, like, you think you have an obligation, but you don't, and neither do those other two. You guys are just kids, you know? And she's trying to, like, you know, the hard part about, like, letting go of your children or whatnot. Like, no, you must stay here young forever.
Yeah, and like the part where it goes on to be like, oh, you must have misunderstood. He probably didn't actually mean that you had to. And he's just like, no, I didn't misunderstand. Just like, leave it alone. I know what I'm talking about. Just kind of condescending a little bit.
But I mean,
she's just pulling out all her tactics.
Yeah, she's trying to deploy. I was going to say she's trying to deploy all her arsenal of tactics, and she's like, I will find the angle and I will do this.
Yeah, it's like if it's not guilt isn't working, I'll try shame. Shame isn't working, I'll try condescension. Like, I don't know, everything. She'll just try everything.
Like, the only thing she didn't do was just outright cry in front of him.
Yeah, that's true. Well, yeah, and then but she does like very like change her emotions on a dime, where like all of a sudden randomly she's like she's all like happy and nice and like leaves him alone, and he's like, what the fuck just happened? That might
Molly
also have been
Weasley.
another tactic.
Yeah, that Molly Weasley, she's too good at this game.
Yeah, she's a little conniving mother.
What a woman. Anyhow, my quote is the following. Let's see, said Hermione, slamming Travels with Trolls onto the discarded pile with a rather fierce look. I've been packing for days, so we're ready to leave at a moment's notice, which for your information has included doing some pretty difficult magic, not to mention smuggling Mad Eye's whole stock of Polyjuice Potion right under Ron's mom's nose. I've also modified my parents' memories so that they're now convinced they're really called Wendell and Monica Wilkins, and that's their life, and that their life's ambition is to move to Australia, which they have now done. That's to make it more difficult for Voldemort to track them down and interrogate them about me, or you, because unfortunately, I've told them quite a bit about you. Assuming I survive our hunt for Horcruxes, I'll find Mom and Dad and lift the enchantment. If I don't, well, I think I've cast a good enough charm to keep them safe and happy. Wendell and Monica Wilkins don't know that they've got a daughter, you see.
Oh, gosh, that whole part just like rips my heart out.
Same. Can't teach Olivia to do magic.
Yeah, but I mean, it definitely shows your politic really, really well, because I mean, obviously we know Hermione's a planner, and like it's really like nice to see, like, peek behind the curtain and see all the stuff that she's done to like make this the easiest that she can make it for the three of them when they need to leave, you know?
Well, and, you know, keeping her parents safe because they can't do magic and defend themselves at the same level that, like, Ron's parents and family can. And even
she's,
Ron,
like, literally thought of everything.
Yeah, and, like, Ron also has a pretty airtight plan, you know, that, you know, his dad and brothers have helped him with. But But yeah, she's like, I'm serious about this. I have planned and for every contingency because I know what's at stake. When I don't show up at Hogwarts, this is what's going to happen. And also, I think even if she did show up at Hogwarts, like, I think her family would be in jeopardy.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, Harry definitely knows that she's serious the second she reveals, like, oh yeah, I made my parents forget who I was. Like, oh shit, you know? That was Harry's oh shit moment.
And I kind of feel like, look, I'm not saying that the Ghoul in Pajamas is like unremarkable, but this chapter could have been titled Wendell and Monica Wilkins.
Yeah. So I mean, that's part of my Dementor. So, but yes, I will expand on that. I will expand on that later.
I did not know that was actually part of your Dementor. Okay.
It is. Yes.
All right.
But I agree with you is well all I'll say right now.
Shocking right. That you agree with me because we share a brain.
Right, exactly.
All right, Helene. So we're at the point in our podcast, in this fine podcast that you can find wherever podcasts are sold for free.
Sold for free. Yeah. Free 99.
Free 99. Where we talk about how we see each other's politics in the series. So I can start with yours. Your politic was the politic of obligation. And this makes me think about a very unpopular character, but one that I love discussing in depth, more because I think it shows some stuff that I didn't understand until I was like old enough, right, to understand them, which is the one Petunia Dursley.
I knew you were going to say, I was like, is she going to say Petunia? I really was like,
of course. Even before, like, I decided I wanted one child and whatnot, right? Like, I had as an adult, I had complicated feelings about revisiting Petunia Dursley because it's that idea of like, well, you don't know, maybe she was struggling with postpartum depression, or maybe she wanted one child and then got saddled with another, and that created resentment. Like, and, you know, I'm not defending her. I'm just saying it tracks, like
she's an intriguing character, even if you hate her. I think there's a lot to be this like uncovered.
Yeah, I just feel like obviously I would not behave in the same way, I hope, that Petunia Dursley does. But if someone left a child in my doorstep and then forced me to like raise him or her, I'd be like, well, crap, like I'm barely floating above water with the one I have, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So I would need a lot of therapy is what I'm saying, to like not take it out on anyone, not even myself, like, because I tend to internalize.
Right.
Like, I'm not a person who externalizes pain. I internalize it. So I would, instead of lashing out at others, I would lash out at myself and like hurt myself internally a lot, emotionally. So I would need a lot of therapy is what I'm saying.
That you've solved it, Adri. That is what Petunia needs, therapy.
What?
I know. If she had just gone to therapy, maybe Harry would have had a nicer, different life.
Did I just solve the series, you guys?
Yeah, you just solved world peace.
I knew it. I just
therapy.
Have a gift.
The answer to everything is therapy.
Correct.
I have a therapy session tomorrow morning. Fun fact.
Beautiful. See, so you don't become Petunia. Duh.
It's my anti-Petunia therapy session. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That tracks, actually. But that idea of like, to be, like therapy aside, right? She's obligated to take this child in, doesn't have like any good associations with the child's mother at the moment because of things that happened and sibling rivalry and stuff like this. So like to have to take care for a child and be obligated to that, we don't know if she gets a monetary stipend or not. Pretty sure she doesn't, like, even though Harry has his like own fortune. And we know that kids get abused in the foster care system, right? Like, this is not new to anyone.
Right.
If you've been, paying
Unfortunately.
attention to the news, unfortunately. So, and those people get paid to foster children with a stipend that is supposed to cover the expenses of, keeping a child alive and well-fed and taken care of. But that doesn't always happen because people tend to abuse it. There's some great foster parents, but some foster parents are not. And unfortunately, there's such a lack of foster parents that, some people are in it for the wrong reasons and some people are in it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Who knows? It's terrible. Anyway, that's how I see the politics of obligation in the series.
Yeah, I think that's really good. We didn't even really get into her obligation to Dumbledore either, right? Because she has an obligation to Lily. Yeah.
Well, the obligation is towards Dumbledore. That's what I thought. Was the
and Lily, really? I mean, it's unsaid. But
yeah,
Lily,
but,
Lily in the end, Lily was her sister. In the end, Lily was her sister, and
But Lily can't hold her to her obligation. The only person who could was Dumbledore.
That's true. Yes. I mean,
Lily's not going to be
hope that her
come back from the grave.
Right. Well, I mean, it's a Wizarding World. You never know. But I mean, her conscience would hopefully hold her to her obligation to her dead sister. But that would be if she was a better person. Anyway.
Yeah. If she had gone to therapy.
Right. Anyway, in conclusion, I agree. Yes, Petunia is probably the best, person for obligation throughout the series. For planning and preparation, right? That was what you said. Yes, planning and preparation. Yeah, yes. It's going to be pretty similar to last week. You said was it last week or 2 weeks ago? I can't remember. When I had defensive strategies for mine.
Yes.
You said Dumbledore was the biggest one throughout the series. And honestly, I agree again for Dumbledore because we said off mic, he's the ultimate planner, right? He has been planning for this book, the events of this book since the night Harry's parents died, basically. When he started piecing together everything that happened.
Yeah, unless you also want to throw in Voldemort, Voldemort enters the chat, because he did, right. Did the whole Horcruxes to plan for I am going to be invincible,
That's true, and he also plans all of the what do you call it? The booby traps and the protection around every Horcrux, and he's been planning making Horcruxes since he was in Hogwarts. He's been kind of scheming. I feel like scheming is a better word.
Yeah, when he was hot and he still had his nose.
I still feel weird ever saying that Voldemort was hot, to be honest. But
no, I'm just okay. Since he had his nose,
when he had his nose, only hot people have noses.
Clearly,
which makes me hot because I have a nose. FYI.
Helene, come on. We all have eyes. We know you're hot.
What happens? That's what happens when you play the oop, got your nose with the kids. It's oop, made you ugly. You don't have a nose anymore. Oh, here, you can have your nose back. You're pretty. You're hot again.
Because you need to be hot. It's okay.
Right, exactly. Anyway, we've gone way off. Yeah, but I think
it's gone off the rails, everyone.
Yes, I think both Voldemort and Dumbledore are good. Different sides of the same coin when it comes to planning. So,
yeah, yes. I mean, and Dumbledore had a big nose. Voldemort has no nose.
So he was really hot. The bigger the nose,
really hot, you guys.
The person. Therefore, all Jews are hot. Just saying. I'm a Jew. I can make the stereotype. I also have a large nose.
You can make the joke. I can only laugh at it.
Right. But you can only laugh at it if I give you permission to laugh at it, which I do.
Correct. I have a small nose, so I'm much less hot than everyone else.
But you're still hotter than everyone who doesn't have a nose.
I'm still hotter than Voldemort, that's right.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, nose hotness correlation aside, you know what I love other than noses?
Tell me more.
Chocolate. As I was saying, and I was like, this is the most ridiculous transition I've ever made in my life.
Well, also,
Dementors and chocolate.
Also, the nose conversation got off the rails.
It was, yeah. So, switching from noses and hotness to Dementors and chocolate, what was your Dementor this chapter, Adri? What was something that you didn't like that happened in the chapter?
So my Ted Cruz this chapter was the following quote, and I'll explain myself, okay? Remorse, said Hermione. You've got to really feel what you've done. There's a footnote. Apparently, the pain of it can destroy you. I can't see Voldemort attempting it somehow. Can you? And it reminded me, dear listeners. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, before you get into it, can we just, like, admire the fact that Hermione is one of, like, the only people that knows how to make a Horcrux now? Like,
and she could because she's very good.
I mean, she has mastered all magic, but she would never do it. But it's just like, oh, so Hermione, I kind of forgot until rereading this chapter that Hermione actually read the book that explains how to make a Horcrux. I forgot that. So, pretty crazy.
She knows a lot of unsavory shit that she's like, I'm not touching that.
Yeah. That's why because
she's the only one who reads all of the magic books. So
right.
She must have a ton of knowledge that she's like, no, not doing that one either.
That's why she is so well equipped to be Minister of Magic later on in life, because she has this knowledge, but she would never use it. She's trustworthy.
Yeah. All right, so the reason this is my Horcrux is the following, dear listeners. And
your Horcrux? Are we changing Dementors to Horcrux?
I was even thinking about that. How do you know? It's because we share a brain. I forgot. It just reminded me of the actions taken by the author to twist and turn herself to not even, like, feel the consequences of her words. Ooh. Or show any remorse for them.
We're getting deep.
And this fucking quote of saying that feeling remorse, that feeling remorse is apparently so painful that it can destroy you, shows me that this author will, like, do anything that she can to not feel remorse for her actions or words.
Well, okay, not that, I'm not standing up for her, but I know any great sentence starts with that, but just let's put it into perspective. The pain of remorse for murdering someone is what can destroy you. I'm just gonna say she should feel remorse for the pain that she's caused, but it's just not on the same level as murdering someone like you have to do to make a Horcrux. I just want to draw that line, but I see what you mean, and I agree I
just feel like this comes from, obviously she wrote these words, Helene, right? So, like, her in her subconscious, in a way, like, she's equating feeling. I'm thinking, maybe I'm just therapizing and I don't have a license for it, but who cares? This is a podcast. This is what we do. That equating, like, remorse for doing something terrible, like,
like murder. Yeah.
Like murder. And feeling a remorse for that action so that you can heal your soul is so painful that it can destroy you. That I'm just like, oh, cool. So you get to make the rules in this world, Helene, right?
I don't.
And you chose. No. I mean, as a writer, right? She gets to make the rules, and she made that rule.
Yeah, she does. Yes, I don't. She does.
She does, right? She made the rule that feeling remorse can fucking kill you because inside, she's like, yeah, remorse could fucking kill you. I'm not going to go back on it. This is why she keeps doubling down and retweeting neo-Nazis.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, and I agree. I do agree, and I see what you're saying. I just think that like the severity of like I think she's using this wording in this particular instance to like explain like that the act of murdering someone is like, and having to atone for that is what can destroy you. But I do like, I get what you're saying. Like remorse in general is, I don't think, like, I think she was trying to make it very obvious that like it is bad what you have to do to make a Horcrux. Like she was like just trying to nail that, like that home. You know what I mean?
No, I understand, but also she gets to make the rules here, and yeah, murder is a terrible thing. I'm definitely not advocating for murder, but there are also other things that you can do to other people that are not murder.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that like her actions. Yeah, her actions have led to like the intense pain and probably the end of life for some people in the community. So yeah. I mean, she's not like, she didn't murder them with her own hands, but yes, like she's probably at fault for some of that.
So like the idea to me, right? Like the idea of like she got to make the rules for this world, and in this world, the only way you can split your soul is by, or fracture your soul is by murdering someone. But it like how, to me, right? Mm-hmm. How different is murdering someone than like incapacitating to the point that they are no longer themselves, right? Is that less bad than murder because they're still technically alive?
I mean, now we're getting into like a really like deep moral, ethical discussion.
I know. No, I know. But what I'm trying to say is like she got to make the rules, right? So like she did like that, like black or white line in there. I'm trying to trouble it in a way to say like, listen, like this is, to me, this is troubling because of this. Yeah. And it reminded me of the actions of a certain someone in the real world, a certain someone who made all the rules and wrote all the words to this, right? So that's why it was my Dementor.
Okay. No, and like I said, I get it. And either way, either way, even without that context, like that quote is still really disturbing. So like, yeah, it's, I agree with it being a Dementor either way.
Well, how about yours? What was your Ted Cruz sunbathing in Cancun?
Yes, I've alluded to it a couple of times, but so I mean the main Ted Cruz sunbathing in Cancun that I had this chapter was just Hermione, just in general having to modify her parents' memory and like the pain that obviously had to have caused her, and like having to like make your parents forget that you exist, like that is painful. So that alone, but on top of that, like a footnote to that is the author just like reframing it and like kind of, I mean, first of all, just like skating past it. Like the quote that you read, that is literally all we get. Like it is not mentioned again in the chapter, and they're just kind of like, oh, that sucks. Anyway, this is what Ron did. Which I mean, like, I will give Ron his props. He like also came up with a good plan and he thought it through and all that. But kind of like you mentioned earlier, like Hermione's plan required a lot more sacrifice. Hermione's plan was a lot, like, not only like more technically difficult to pull off, but like more emotionally and painfully difficult to pull off. Yep. And it's possible that her parents will never remember who she is if she doesn't survive this. Like they will not be around to mourn her. And I just, like you mentioned, the fact that they named the chapter The Ghoul in Pajamas and not like Monica and Randall Wilkins or whatever their names were. Wendell. Or Wendell, sorry. Randall, Wendell, they're close. Or like, the Grangers moved to Australia or something, like.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Like an interesting title, right? Like you never know. Like honestly, Monica and Wendell Wilkins would be like, oh, who the fuck are they? Right. It doesn't give anything away.
I get that The Ghoul in Pajamas is like funnier and weirder, and it's like a more like what the fuck kind of moment, I guess, when you read it. But like, I don't know. I just feel like the whole that way that it was not only framed in the chapter, but like from outside the chapter, just kind of like minimizes Hermione's pain and trauma and makes Ron seem more important. So that was my Dementor.
Yeah, for sure. I agree 100%. But you know what I agree with 100% more? Our love for chocolates.
Yes. Do we have any more like chocolate recommendations? Because is that a new thing that we're
wait. Let me see. What chocolate did I? Oh, okay. So for my, go ahead.
I have one. They are a throwback, but Oreo Cakesters. Man, they came back from the 90s.
Okay.
And you can get them. And I bought a box the other day, and they're just as good as I remember. So get an Oreo Cakester.
You know what? I should put that in my grocery list.
Yes.
Okay. So if you have a Trader Joe's near you, they have these chocolate chip
Trader
dippers.
Joe's.
And they're like long chocolate chip cookies. And they have ones that have chocolate on one of the sides of these dippers. Chocolate chip cookie
is it
dippers.
Like a Milano, like a Milano cookie kind of?
A lot longer than that, like more oblong than that.
Like
so
a biscotti?
That you can basically kinda, yeah. So you can dip it in milk.
Okay.
They're very delicious. You can have like the normal just chocolate chip cookie one, but they have one with like chocolate like on one of the sides, and it's even more chocolatey.
You know what I love to do when I'm eating chocolate chip cookies with milk? This is a sidebar, but just like stick it in the microwave for 10 seconds. Just 10 seconds before you eat a cookie with your milk, because it makes it as like soft and gooey as like just fresh out of the oven. Just 10 seconds.
Well, these ones I wouldn't recommend because it's like chocolate on one side.
Yeah,
so
maybe not the ones with the
side.
chocolate on the side. Yeah, maybe not those.
Yeah. So get the ones without chocolate for that. I like that. Then there's another recommendation. I am full of recommendations today. There is I think like a cookie place called Crumble Cookie. I'm sure everyone knows what this is. If you live in a
familiar.
city.
I've heard of it, but I don't have one. We have like Insomnia cookies here, but we don't have Crumble.
Ooh.
But I've heard of them.
So their monster cookie is amazing.
Ooh. This is like, are we changing it to Dementors and cookies?
Well, I mean, the cookies that I'm mentioning have chocolate in them.
Yeah, it's just this is like a cookie themed recommendation.
It's a cookie themed recommendation. Today it's giving cookies with chocolate. We will come back eventually to like chocolate. Maybe next time it'll be hot chocolates. You never know.
Oh, totally. Yeah, definitely.
So yeah. So today we just did cookies, but I mean, pretty amazing.
That's mine was also a cookie. I also just realized,
yeah. Or as Penny from Happy Endings would say, amazing.
Amazing. Yes.
Have you ever seen Happy Endings?
I've seen like quite a few episodes. I think I saw all of season 1.
Okay.
It's one of my close friends. It's like one of my close friends' favorite shows. So I've definitely watched some of it.
It's one of my favorite shows. So
I was talking about you. No, I'm just kidding.
No, me and your close friend have that in common, was what I was going to say.
Yeah, it's Kat. I was talking about Kat.
I mean, we have a lot of things in common, Kat and I.
You do.
All right, let's get to the chocolate in the chapter.
Chocolate in the chapter. Since you mentioned to me off mic that you also were going to say my chocolate is yours, do you want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead, because I got thoughts and I've got, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so mine is a quote. Okay. Now, Ron, have you cleaned out your room yet? Why, exclaimed Ron, slamming his spoon down and glaring at his mother. Why does my room have to be cleaned out? Harry and I are fine with it the way it is. We are holding your brother's wedding here in a few days' time, young man. And are they getting married in my bedroom? Asked Ron furiously. No. So why in the name of Merlin's saggy left and then it gets cut off.
Pretty sure it's earlobe, right? It's earlobe, right?
I think it's balls.
Sure. No, I know. I was just being like
ball sack, I guess.
Like, I was being the mom in the situation, like keeping it PG, right? Like it's earlobe, right?
Do your ears hang low? Do they? Yeah, okay.
Is it like nostril? Like
anyway, I mean, I picked this one because very rarely does this ever happen, but I am Ron in this situation. Like,
so relatable.
This happened. I had this almost exact conversation with my mother, like, fucking every single time we ever had any person over to the house that was not part of our immediate family. So many times growing up.
I had this conversation with my mother every time any of the people that didn't live with us in the house would come to visit.
Yeah.
Family or no.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just remember like, I don't know. I think like I remember my graduation party from high school. She was like, you have to clean your room. And I was like, Mom, I am not going to let people into my room for my graduation party. It's going to be in the backyard. Like, just literally this exact same conversation so many times. Just,
yeah.
I keep a messy room. I don't like cleaning my room. I don't like it. I like living in filth and disorganization. And no one has to see it but me.
To be a teenager.
Yes.
Also an adult who hasn't grown up.
Nope, my room is still just as messy as it was back when I lived with my parents.
My mom is staying with us, and it drives her insane.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't be able to. Anyway, was what you were gonna say the same? And
basically because I forgot about this line, as we often do, and I cackled out loud because I was like, this is me.
Yeah.
This is me. This is so relatable, so like teenage angst. I love it. I am here for it. I was this person. I still am this person. Yay, Ron. But I also found another quote to embrace as my backup chocolate, because I gave 2 recommendations of cookies that have chocolate, so I have 2 quotes. I think I will take Hogwarts history, even if we're not going back there. I don't think it'd feel right if I didn't have it with me. And that's really
yeah,
just cute. Like,
it's such a very Hermione line. It's like Hermione uses it like Hogwarts history is like Hermione's security blanket.
Yeah, it's also like a little bit of a hoarder in me also recognizes that within her, and I'm just like, girl, I know.
I have another Buffy reference. That's true. I have another Buffy reference that fits this because I always do. In season 4, episode 1, The Freshman of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, there is a guest star named Pedro Pascal. You might have heard of him. He plays
one of my boyfriends. Go ahead.
Yes, this is like one of his very first roles ever. Like, he is almost unrecognizable. He plays a student in Buffy's freshman class at college named Eddie, and Buffy is like feeling so like fish out of water. She doesn't feel like she fits in. She feels like all of her other friends fit in at college, but not her. And she meets this college student Eddie, and they're like getting to know each other. They're walking back from class back to their dorm, and he talks about how he has a security blanket, and it's a book, the Book of Human Bondage. And then later on in the episode, Eddie gets kidnapped and turned into a vampire, and like there's a whole thing, and she knows that like the vampires like set up a plan to make it look like he just left and gave up on college, but they left that book behind, and so she knew that he didn't actually just leave because he wouldn't have left his book behind because that's his security blanket. And so then that's how she figures it out. Anyway, that's the entire plot of The Freshman of that episode of Buffy. But it just reminds me because I think of Hermione as Eddie with her little security blanket, which is Hogwarts of history. And if Hermione ever
leaves behind,
if she ever goes missing, and there's a note that's like, "I left, I couldn't do it anymore," or whatever, and Hogwarts of history is still there, you know that it is not true. That is a trap. That is fake.
Oh my gosh, I love this so much.
I should just have another segment on the show of how does this week's chapter
tie to Buffy?
Directly tie back to Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
You know what, Helene? I will grant you that.
Thank you. Because, I mean, sometimes it just works so perfectly. I can't help it.
Yeah, no. I feel like this would be great. And, you know, we are but one host with our shared brains. We make the rules. We can do this.
Right. Also, like, fun fact, if you didn't know, Pedro Pascal is in Buffy, and if you want to go watch that episode, I highly recommend it to see him as a little baby.
I always like to see where my boyfriends come from, you know?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Just to see their evolution. Anyway, speaking of, you know, things that happened in the past, last week we asked a question for our listeners. And that question was, what question would you be asked to prove you're not an imposter? And we had some answers, Helene. What were they?
We just got a few this week, but I thought it would be fun when I tell you the question. I thought it would be fun for us both to say what our answers would be to this question.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
And I think we might have mentioned some of these already last time. But Alice Mooney, 1990, said that her question would be, what is my favorite film of all time? Now, Alice, I want to say, you did not provide your answer. And I would like to know what your favorite film of all time is. But that is a good question. And hopefully, maybe that is a defining characteristic of who you are. And therefore, that's why it would work as your question. But I would like to know the answer for you, Miss Alice. But the answer for me, if I were to ask that question, is 10 Things I Hate About You, which I think I might have mentioned last week on the episode. But that would be my answer. I think
you mentioned it off mic, but yes.
Oh, okay. 10 Things I Hate About You. That is my favorite film of all time. What about you, Adri?
Oof, that's hard because I don't really have a favorite film of all time, but if you really pressed me on it, it would be Clueless.
Oh my God, I love Clueless.
Yeah.
Such a good movie.
Yeah.
Oh my God. She's so great. And baby Paul Rudd, who literally looks the same age as he does now.
I know.
Absolutely. I love that
He's my favorite character in the entire thing.
Yeah, he's great. Good choice. All right. Sakura Wood 121 said the question that they would be asked is, which collectible that I own is my most treasured object? Now, again, they did not answer this question. They just told me the question itself. So please, Sakura Wood 121, please write in and tell me the answer to this question. Because if I need to figure out if you're an imposter, just knowing the question won't help. I need to know the answer. But for me, I stopped collecting about a year or so ago. But I did do a good amount of Potter collecting over the years. And I would say my most treasured collectible that I own is a Funko Pop of the Alchemy from Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. It is humongous. Maybe I'll post a picture on social if people want to see what it looks like. But it's long. It's very big. And it's very pretty and multicolored and intricate and very, very detailed. And I found it for $75 at a thrift store, used. And I'm pretty sure it goes for like 150, 300, up to 300 when I look at it on eBay. So I don't have the box anymore because the box was so damaged and like covered in like dirt and stuff. But I have the actual figure. So that's my answer. Do you have collectibles? Do you collect stuff?
I don't really collect. But I was thinking of like all the things that I have or my parents have, I guess.
So like an heirloom or something?
Or, you know, like, because there's stuff in the house of when I was a teenager.
Okay.
That I haven't, moved out. Because, I moved to the US thinking I was gonna come back, and I didn't. And there's a lot of stuff still there. So there. This is a two-parter. I'm gonna go with the recent one and then like a throwback. Okay. And an honorable mention. Oh my God, this is too much pressure. My Doctor Who Barbie for the 13th Doctor, because first woman Doctor. So,
isn't that like recent?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This is a recent one, and then I'm gonna go with an old one.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were starting with the old one. Sorry, go ahead.
No. Recent, old, and then honorable mention.
Oh wait, you're doing 3?
Oh yeah, no, because that's I kept thinking, I was like, oh shit, I have too much.
Okay, girl, go for it.
And then old one, so recent Doctor Who Barbie. Old one is do you remember back in the early aughts or the late 90s where NSYNC came out with their dolls?
Oh, from the music video?
Yeah.
The ones where they're like from the music. Yeah, that I vaguely remember that. Yeah.
I have all 5 still in their boxes.
No way. All 5?
Yeah.
Okay, I would just assume people would only buy their favorite.
No, I bought all 5.
Do you have a favorite member of NSYNC?
Oh yeah, it was Lance. Like 100% Lance.
Love
because
Lance.
I always find like the gay one and like just.
I mean, Lance is still the most fabulous and the best.
Like he has the best personality too, if we're being honest.
Yeah. I love him.
Yeah. I mean, JT. Ugh. Anyway.
There are a lot of things I don't like about JT.
I hate him so much. Anyway. So that would be like the throwback. And then honorable mention would be like my Polly Pocket collection, which I did a video for patrons on when I was in Puerto Rico a few years ago.
I used to collect Polly Pockets. Wait, there were 2 different kinds. Was it the one with the like rubber clothes that you could pull on and off?
No, girl. It was like 1992 it was the Polly Pockets, like tiny, teeny, tiny ones.
Okay, yeah. I know I've seen and like know of both, but I had a huge collection of the ones with the rubber clothes, and I would always
because we are so far apart in age.
And I would just collect all these different outfits, and I had so much fun like dressing them up. I can remember the feel of those rubber clothes in my hands. It's so weird.
Helene, I mean, this is, for you and the listeners who have Patreon access. If you go like back enough in videos,
I'm not a patron.
Yes, you are. You have access. Access to it. Don't even
support our own podcast.
Stop it. Anyway. Anyhow, if you go back enough on videos, you will find there's a video I did in my bedroom with my mom going over like every single like Polly Pocket, and also a Harry Potter like playing Quidditch, like it was Harry playing Quidditch still in its like box too.
Ooh, that's nice. So, I found talking about Harry Potter collectibles, I found an old Hermione towel from like the pre-movie like Mary Grand Prix artwork collectible era.
I have that one, I think.
A towel? It's a beach towel.
Yeah, I have a beach towel that's not the Hermione one, but I have the castle, and they're like the Mary Grand Prix like thing where it's like the castle and they're like in their little boats for year 1.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, mine is like a picture of Hermione. I think it says Hermione on it somewhere. I use it as my towel, so I can go grab it later. But maybe I'll take a picture of that. But I think she's like holding a book and like waving a wand, and I think there's like a potions bottle. I think there's like a potions bottle for like her sorcerer's stone like task. But I found it at my parents' house like earlier this year, and I was home visiting, and I took it with me. I was like, "Can I take this back? I want this."
So I have that towel that I told you. I mean, this is back at my parents', right? That and like the other one, because I had 2. It was Harry, like as a seeker, like in his first year, mid-flight. It was so cute.
I have a poster.
The artwork.
I have that artwork as poster here. I mean, we're on video, so you probably can see it, but right there. Do you see what I'm talking about? That artwork?
Yeah. So it was, the background was blue,
Oh, okay.
I think.
Yeah, I have
But it was
the
like,
Mary Graham Prayhole like poster thing. So
oh my gosh, I love her illustrations. Love,
Yeah.
love, love.
she's the best.
But I feel like we have another question that needs to, another answer that we need to.
Yes, sorry.
That
So
is
we got
also
off,
a
we got off
question
target.
for us.
But so this last one was from listener Jeff, who we love, Dream Quaffle. He said, "What is your go-to show when you need cheering up?" Now, I want to say thank you, Jeff, because you actually provided your answer, which I appreciate. Jeff says, for the record, his is the Golden Girls. That's his go-to show.
Excellent
for
answer.
Yes, go-to show for when you
Excellent.
need cheering up. So, thank you, Jeff. This is a wonderful question and a wonderful answer. I still need to. I've seen like the first couple of episodes of Golden Girls, but I still need to watch the rest of it. Don't hate me.
Helene, are we starting a Golden Girls podcast?
Anyway, what is your answer? What
wow,
is your-
that was a no if I've ever heard one.
I'm sorry, I can't answer. I have a cat on my lap.
Oh, sure. So the answer to this question for me is absolutely 1,000%. 2 different shows because I can't pick one apparently.
You're like the most
it is-
indecisive person in my whole life I've ever met.
No, it's just that I contain multitudes, Celine. So actually, I'm just, it depends. So happy endings for sure. Tied with New Girl. That's it. That's the tweet. That's it.
Okay, all right, that's fair. I guess then
Is
I'm gonna
yours
say
Buffy?
I'm gonna say 2 as well. Then, if that's what you get to do, yeah, no surprise, no surprise. The main one is Buffy, and even though Buffy is not always a happy show, I got to tell you, like there are a lot of really, really, really sad and depressing episodes, all of which I love dearly, and I would still watch to cheer me up, which makes no sense. But if I had to pick one, it would specifically be the musical episode of Buffy. I watch that like 3 times a year. But then since you got to say 2, I'll also say Friends as like, because that's like my actual sitcom.
That makes a total sense. Yeah,
that
like
makes sitcom, like lighthearted, funny show, as opposed to Buffy, which is like a very serious drama, although is very funny sometimes. Well, a lot of the times, but it's not a funny show. Anyway, it's not a sitcom. Friends is a sitcom. So,
just every time I watch New Girl, I just find it funnier and funnier. So it's just really good. It's just really good, guys. I can't
for some reason
recommend it enough.
I've seen like 4 seasons of the New Girl. I don't know. I haven't seen the whole show, but I have seen like a good amount of seasons of it. But for some reason, and I'm like, I liked it. It was fine. Sorry if that offends you, but for some reason,
why would it offend me?
Because I'm like not super like excited about it.
I didn't write it.
Okay, but like I get personally offended when someone doesn't like what I like. So that's just me. Anyway, what I was trying to say is that TikTok, for some reason, thinks that I am the biggest New Girl fan in the world, and shows me tons of New Girl content and tons of content with just like the New Girl audio behind it. So like, I feel like I know a lot more about that show than I do.
Maybe it knows that you listen to the podcast of like Boy Meets World, and that's like a similar podcast to like that New Girl podcast that they're doing of behind the scenes content. So it might just be doing a cross reference.
I don't know. There. It's been showing me New Girl content since before I started listening to that podcast.
Okay.
But I don't know.
Well, maybe you're just in the right demo, Yeah,
I don't know. For some reason it got it in its head that in its little algorithm head.
So if we're being honest, right? Like happy endings, I've always loved. Like there's not been a time where I've been like, ugh, happy endings, right? I was like, gone too soon, RIP, love you so much till the end of time. Penny is my favorite character because I am Penny and Penny is me. Secondly, I did take a break from New Girl for a time because I got annoyed with Jessica Day. I believe that might be because she may hit too close to home sometimes for me. And I am like, I don't like this because she's annoying and I'm annoying. And I don't like to see this about myself. But it got much better once I accepted the New Girl wasn't a Jessica Day show. It was an ensemble cast. And I focused more on the rest of the people.
That's fair. I like that. And this is not in any way an insult. This is, if anything, a compliment. I can definitely see how you and Jessica Day are similar.
Really? I wonder why. She says, as she's like, has bangs for the 4th time in 3 years.
But like I said, it is fully a compliment and not in any way an insult. So there you go.
It's okay. I'll allow it, Your Honor. All right, so we've got a new question based on the exploits of the trio this week. If you were joining the trio on their quest, what one item would you pack as your security blanket?
Yeah. So I mean, like we talked about, Hermione has Hogwarts history. It's like your one item that is not essential, but you want to bring it anyway, right? Like Hogwarts history isn't going to help them, but Hermione wants to bring it because it.
Are we packing in 1997 or are we packing now?
Now.
Okay.
Just like, what item are you bringing that's going to like bring you comfort but isn't practical? You know what I mean?
All right.
Like,
we'll see.
My cat Albus here, who is on my lap, he is not practical, but I might bring him with because he makes me feel happy and safe.
Rude. You would pack Albus and not Lily?
I literally am only saying Albus because he's literally on my lap right now. Lily is also, if I could bring them both. Actually, if I had to pick one cat to bring, it would probably be Lily and not Albus.
And Albus promptly left her lap.
He literally left my lap right as I said that. But yeah, yes. He's like, I see how it is, Mom. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Albus is just higher maintenance, you know? Like, he's such a menace. Lily would literally just chill and hang out with me, and she wouldn't
I
care.
thought you would say, like, your Buffy pillow, you know?
No, that is not a security blanket. I keep that out of obligation because it creeps not only me out, but everyone who sees it. I love it, but, like, it's definitely not. It doesn't give me comfort, I'll tell you that.
Okay. Is it too intense?
I mean, Buffy is just staring at you with her eyes. And then on the other side, it's like a really weird, messed up picture of Angel. He looks scary. So I cannot let it go on the other side. You see what I mean?
Oh my goodness. That's quite the image that you got there.
I have so many things I probably like post pictures I need to post on social media for our listeners because they're probably like, I need to see what this Alchemy Funko Pop looks like. I need to see what this Buffy pillow looks like. And I probably need to post
the other side.
Yes, both sides. And I probably also need to post an image of what I mean by the Polly Pockets with rubber clothes because I'm sure those Gen Zers are like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Oh, yeah. We need to there's a lot of things we need to post. There's a to-do list happening here.
Mm-hmm.
All right. But speaking of media, Angel and Buffy and Polly Pockets, what media have you been consuming, Helene? What's keeping you afloat?
Yes. So I am a big Nathan Fielder fan. I always like second guess how you say his last name. I just call him Nathan because we're besties. Yes, Nathan Fielder. I just wanted to make sure. I'm a big Nathan Fielder fan who, if you are unsure of who that is, he had a show back in the day called Nathan for You, which was like a reality like comedy thing that just fucking cracked me up. He came out with a new show on HBO Max called The Rehearsal. And I was going to watch the show no matter what because I'm a huge Nathan fan. Like I said, I was even further enticed to watch the show because one of my friends and coworkers, her partner, Thomas, is like a main character in like the 4th episode. It's another reality show where he like forces people. So like people come to him with something that they've been putting off or avoiding. And he basically sets up like this rehearsal scenario where he like completely reenacts the entire scenario of how they're going to do this thing that they are avoiding doing. And gives them the opportunity to rehearse it and like go at it from every angle and prepare and see like all the different things that could happen, and so that they're 100% prepared for no matter anything that happens in the entire scenario.
Mm-hmm.
He like completely recreates all this, like all the places as sets, and he hires actors to be the people that like they need to interact with. And in the 4th episode, my friend and coworker's partner is like a really big part of it. And so I needed to watch it because I was like, oh my God, I know someone in this show, first of all, which doesn't happen very often. But it's hilarious. Nathan's brand of comedy is very cringy. So if you don't like that, then maybe you won't enjoy it. But he is hilarious. He's so funny. So go watch The Rehearsal on HBO Max. It is very unique. For some reason, I tend to like tall, awkward comedians because him and Bo Burnham are quite similar in some ways. So, except that Nathan doesn't sing, as far as I really am aware. But go watch The Rehearsal on HBO Max. It's actually quite entertaining.
So the rehearsal sounds like this is your brain on anxiety, you know?
Yeah, no, it's hilarious. And like the amount the like amount that he goes towards like the amount that he does, what's the word I'm trying to think of? The extent,
scenario planning?
No, like the extent that he goes to. Like he goes too far in some cases. And it gets really meta. Like in one of like, it's kind of like an overarching thing. One of the things that he's helping a person run the rehearsal for is like a woman who wants to have children, but she doesn't want to do it without knowing like that she can do it and that she can handle it. And so he like sets up this entire scenario for her to rehearse having and raising a child, in which he rents out a house for her and has child actors that he has to seamlessly like switch out every, like, because they're like child labor laws, right? So like a newborn can only like act for 4 hours and like, or something, 7 hours or something. And so he like literally, and every week the kid ages up 3 years. And so it's like a long, so it starts with a newborn, goes to 3 months, then 6 months, then 9 months, yeah, and on and on and on. And it goes on for weeks. And he just seamlessly keeps on trading out the child actors. And
Jesus Christ.
It's so funny. I can't. The extent that he goes to make it realistic for her.
This is like living my nightmares, right? Like,
it's so funny.
This is legit my brain on anxiety.
Like, it's just so hilarious to see all the things that he will do to make it realistic for these people. It's so funny. I can't help it. It's just you gotta watch it. I feel like I'm not doing it justice. Honestly, you gotta watch it.
Okay. Well, mine is an Audible original. Audiobook. There's no print book of this because I have tried finding it. I liked it so much I wanted to buy the print version for everyone I know and love and send it to them, because that's my love language is gifts, right?
You can gift audiobooks on Audible.
No, but it's like an Audible original production. Like you have to be an Audible member to get it. Like you can't gift it. It's not like one that you buy with a credit. Anyhow, it's called The Comeback by Lily Chu.
Okay.
And it is, the premise very loosely, it is a lawyer from Canada, right? She's amazing. She's driven. She knows what she wants, you know, We all know someone like that, right? She's an Enneagram 8. Similarities are ending here. Um, she's, very driven, very ambitious. She says it like it is. She has this roommate who has a cousin who just so happens to be in a K-pop band, but she doesn't know about this. So he is staying over incognito. I am giving away a little bit of the plot, but it's literally in the summary of the book, so it's not like you wouldn't know. And he's, she doesn't know it, so they kind of get to know each other without knowing that, and then it all explodes, and they're going through career transitions, both of them, and it's like that, kind of like tension between like, oh, but my job, but oh, romance, but oh, you're famous? Like, no, like there's like a lot going on. Oh, but you have to go back to Korea? Oh no, like there's like a lot of things going on.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Sounds like a lot.
But it's amazing. I love my romance books, girl.
Of course.
It just gives hope.
Of course you do. And I agree. I love romance books as well.
So please get an Audible subscription. I believe there's like a free trial one for the first month. You can download and listen to that one. It took me like less than 2 days, and I was just listening while pumping. Just beautiful book. Loved it. 10 stars out of 5.
I know you said that, you said you can't buy it with a credit, right? Because I actually have a credit on Audible that I've been trying to decide what I want to do with.
Oh no, you can't. You can't buy it with a credit. I don't think you. Do you have an Audible membership?
Yeah, it's $15 every other month. I get 1 credit every other month.
Well, girl, you can listen to this for free because you have an Audible membership.
Perfect, but also, what should I spend my credit on?
All right, I got another suggestion. 1 second, let me check my Audible. Okay, so Miss Lattimore's Letter by Suzanne Alain.
Okay, I'll look into that one. I'm thinking I want to try some more different types of contemporary romance.
Okay, so that one's not contemporary, but it's written by the same person who wrote Mr. Malcolm's List, who just got made into a movie.
Okay, I don't know about that one, but I'll look.
Okay, so another contemporary romance that I would recommend is one by Emily Henry, and it's called...
That sounds familiar, that name. That name sounds familiar.
Beach Read. And if you've already read Beach Read, I would suggest People We Meet on Vacation.
I haven't read Beach Read, but it has come across in my search. So
yeah, so Beach Read is her first novel that I know of, like under her name. It's a fantastic contemporary romance. So is obviously The Comeback, which is the one that I just told you about. And then People We Meet on Vacation is another contemporary romance that is fantastic. And then Book Lovers, I haven't started, but I just bought it. So I'll let you know
I've heard about that one too. I also, along with TikTok thinking that I'm a New Girl fan for some reason, I've also found my way onto Book Talk, which I'm not saying I don't belong on Book Talk, but I definitely don't read a lot of new stuff, and I don't read to the amount that other people on Book Talk tend to read. I usually find like one series that I'm really into, and I'll like focus on that series for a few months, and then I'll not read for a while, and then I'll find another thing. And so I'm on Book Talk, and I get all these recommendations like all the time from TikTok, and I'm like, okay, well, I will read that eventually, I guess, but
if you're looking for something contemporary and something that's not just like gratuitous like romance, like it has some depth to it, Emily Henry is the person I would recommend.
Cool, thank you. Nice.
Because there's also like, if you're feeling like Bridgerton-y, like Miss Lattimore's Ladder is amazing. But if you want contemporary, Emily Henry.
Awesome. All right, good to know.
I'm here. I'm always here for the romance recommendations, guys.
Yes, and I still have the book that you sent me for my birthday. I still have to read. I have that on my shelf. I need to read that, and I do still have 2 more Bridgerton books that I have in my possession that I haven't read yet. I've read like 5 of them, but I have 2 more left that I haven't read that I own. So I have physical books that I need to read that I have here, but I also have an unused credit on Audible. So I'm like, what should I use that on?
Well, I'm at least the Emily Henry books. I loved Beach Read so much. I bought the physical book after I listened to it on Audible. And then Seth saw somewhere like one of my really good friends was recommending Beach Read because she and I I recommended it to her and she and I read it at the same time. And then we're gushing about it. And then he saw on Facebook that she was gushing about it. So he got it for me. So now I have 2 physical copies of Beach Read.
Not a bad problem to have.
No, I was like, I could get you to return it, but why would I? I love this book so much. So I told him he needed to read it with me. We'll see.
Perfect.
Still hasn't done it.
Of course.
That man. Anyhow, yeah. That's it. That's it for the show today. Please join us next time as we talk about Chapter 7 of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. This one is titled The Will of Albus Dumbledore.
Albus, you haven't died yet. Do you have a will?
A living will, yeah.
Yeah,
living will and trust.
Did you leave everything to your mama? Yes, you did, Albus. Yes, you did. Good boy.
It's like all my hairballs you can find under the couch. My catnip, I left it under your bed.
All of my half-eaten toys are yours to keep. Thanks, boy.
Does Lily get something out of this?
I don't think Albus would leave Lily in her will. They don't like each other. Lily is not very kind and welcoming to Albus.
And Albus is like, and Lily, to you I leave you my unwavering hatred.
And my dirty litter box. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this conversation, please take a second to give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you happen to be listening to us right now. As I like to remind you all, it helps new listeners discover our podcast, and it makes your co-hosts, who, if anything, have confirmed that they share a brain in this conversation, it makes us happy. So please do that.
We're just one living organism divided by space of states between us.
Yes, that pesky land.
One day, Helene, we will finally meet in person and go to Universal Studios and
can't wait
and get Harry Potter robes because we are getting paid more money now.
Yes, I can't wait.
But until then, politics managed. Support this show by going to patreon.com/Occhiopolitics. Our patrons keep this show going. You can find us online at Occhiopolitics.com, and we are at Occhiopolitics on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can email us your thoughts at info@Occhiopolitics.com. Leave us a voicemail at 915-996-1699. And you might just hear yourself on the podcast. Adriana Wilson is the founder and creative director of the podcast. Helene Karp is the producer and social media manager. Allison Pullman is the audio wizard and editor who makes us sound so good. Cover art and physical rewards are designed by Adriana Wilson. The views expressed by the hosts and guests are expressly their own and not representative of their employers or associates. Occhiopolitics is part of the MuggleNet family of podcasts.
This episode of the Ron Burgundy Podcast is brought to you by the Quarter Pounder with Cheese from McDonald's. Hello, I'm Ron Burgundy. I've had cheeseburgers in every state of this great nation of ours. But you know what? After all my searching, I keep coming back to the McDonald's Quarter Pounder with Cheese, or as I like to call it, the QPC. It's 100% fresh beef with 2 slices of melted cheese, along with pickles and onions and ketchup and mustard. And it's just a big old familiar juicy mess of a burger that never disappoints. I'm Ron Burgundy, and if you're like me, you want a burger worthy of a nickname. Order the QPC.